While I don't have any recent statistics on death rates, I can only say that in the last few years, in my own circle of family, friends, and known individuals, there has been a steady stream of news about someone dying. Very unfortunate. The reasons are varied: COVID, natural death, accidents, etc. This made me think to discuss the topic of death and look at it from the lens of Gita. You see, a physical entity is subject to a cradle to grave cycle. It undergoes 6 stages. First one is the stage of conception or initiation. Period of fertilization where it forms. Then you have the period of growth. You have the period of transformation. Then you have the period of decay, and finally destruction. According to the Hindu scriptures, the soul attaches to this material form right from the stage of conception. Through death, when the physical body begins to decay, the soul moves on and gets assigned to another new material form, the attributes of which are dependent on the actions from the previous instance of the soul in its physical existence. Remember that, previous instance in its physical existence. This is how the cycle of the 6 stages continues. The question is, what is death, and does one really die? Should we lament for a person's death? Krishna in the Gita brings clarity and answers these questions through a very logical explanation. If you think that the soul, which is not even an object, is being slain, isn't that ignorance? Questions Krishna. Krishna says, this body is non-existent before having a life. It is absent after losing a life. Then, how can such a body then be slain? Isn't that ignorance? Krishna asks. A moral issue though arises through this explanation of Krishna. If there is no one to be slain or no one to slay, does it mean it's a free-for-all society? Can murderers go unpunished? Let us go deeper to understand Krishna's message. You see, death means a break in the relationship between a soul and an instance of material manifestation or a body. Nature's law states that this break in relationship must occur in alignment with morals and must be natural. The nature's law and moral, as we discussed in the video on purpose of life, is called dharma. And of course, there are legal laws of the society or the country or state in which you live that must be followed to define a proper death. Punishment from a spiritual standpoint awaits though anyone who goes against dharma. Consider these 2 instances. There is a murderer who kills another person, and then there is a doctor who performs a surgical operation to save a patient and is unsuccessful. In both the scenarios, a person died, and there is a break in relationship between the soul and the material body. But the how and why of breaking that link is significant. The doctor was doing his or her dharma. The murderer was going against dharma. The murderer deserves a punishment and not the doctor. If the person who died had decided his or her life to performing honorable acts, then the death of that body will only result in the soul being attached to a different and exalted body. Take this. You would not just discard your useful old clothes for poor quality new clothes, isn't it? You would seek to get a newer and better quality cloth. Similarly, a person with honorable acts would acquire a different but exalted body and live a life of peace. On the other hand, if the person had lived a life of hatred and wrongdoing, the death of the body may actually allow for a reset, and the individual soul gets a renewed chance in the new body to correct itself and from there on live a honorable life. This is the self-correction mechanism that Gita preaches. The GPS of life is such that it can recalculate and continue to cycle through the 6 stages of cradle to grave till there is alignment to the destination, which is the supreme or the divinity. Then one more question comes. Irrespective of the cause of death, isn't sorrow still tied to the loss of a real and visible material body? Surely there is, unless we view the decay and the destruction of the body from a broader perspective of life and metaphorically as a city of 9 gates. You see, the body is a dynamic city of 9 gates. The 9 gates are the 2 eyes, the 2 ears, the 2 nostrils, 1 mouth, and the private parts below the hip. The soul or the energy is just a guest and an inhabitant of this city till the city is in existence. On the death of the body or the death of the city, the soul moves to another city. The purity of action, our passion and inertia influence the city of 9 gates. Everyone is responsible for their own actions and choices. Like you, others are just another city of 9 gates. Their individual soul, like your soul, is a visitor to that town or city. Everyone is eternal and similar. Each one is different and visiting different cities of 9 gates. Death, my friends, then is only the fall of this city to take on another city and help another city erupt. It's never the death of soul that fires up the body or the city of 9 gates. If you notice, even doctors declare someone dead and that someone has a name and form. They cannot declare the soul or the energy to be dead. Well, then you may ask, if such is the case, that everyone is their own city and unique, what about relationships? What about my feelings? Do relationships mean then anything? Can we be that cold in our approach to life? You see, again, at the fundamental level and looked in isolation, relationships do not matter as each soul is unique, eternal, and in a separate body or city of 9 gates. However, all these cities are part of a bigger ecosystem called nature. The individual souls, the bodies are all in this nature. And the energy that pervades in all of these different cities is an integrated set and inseparable to this nature. The equilibrium of that ecosystem depends on this individual cities and souls being in harmony. Against this context, of course, relationships do matter. Death then is an event in the cyclical life of a soul. Our attachment to the body of that soul and the manner of death to that body or the city of 9 gates makes us validate if death is justified or not justified. Death of a loved one and someone close to us feels completely unjustified. While we may be indifferent to the thousands or millions dying each day with whom we have no contact. when in reality, death of anyone is no less or more important. What can you do? When you experience someone going through pain or even worse, death, recognize that all you can do is to help. But you cannot get attached to pain of another individual. Because only if you adopt that attitude will you remain objective. Part of your responsibility and duty is to help the person in need, even offer prayers on that individual's behalf, and help that individual connect to divinity, and help that individual continue their cycle of life of cradle to grave with peace. This is the best you can do. And don't get searching or derailed and go on a path of finding out justification. A person on the path of spiritual maturity has a discriminatory intellect to identify the relationship and differences between the soul and the city of 9 gates. For such a person, death is another event, and the individual does everything possible to help whoever it is facing that unfortunate event. Most importantly, help offering prayers and connect that individual to divinity. A person on the spiritual path has the veil of ignorance taken away, like sunrise wiping out the darkness of night. Become that spiritual person. Help anybody in need. Stay blessed. I'll talk to you soon.